The giant metal doors opened slowly. Tae-ho Kim walked forward wearing his clean black suit. He carried only a small computer tablet. The moment he stepped inside, loud alarms started screaming everywhere. Red lights flashed on the walls and ceiling. Tae-ho stopped walking. He put his hands up in the air. He looked confused and worried. Security guards from many different alien races ran toward him. All of them had weapons ready to fire. "What is wrong?" Tae-ho asked the closest guard. This guard was tall and blue with 4 arms. Each arm held a different type of energy gun. The blue guard looked at his scanner. Then he looked at Tae-ho. Then back at his scanner. "Sir, you have no weapons. This cannot be right." Tae-ho looked down at his clothes, then back up. "My people told me that humans do not need weapons in the council meeting room. They said we have special permission." More guards came running. Soon 20 different types of aliens surrounded the one human. All of them carried guns or had natural weapons like claws or spikes. They all looked confused and scared. "Check the computer record," said Sunmi Park. She belonged to a race called the Velkari, but humans had adopted her as a baby and raised her. She could speak human languages perfectly. Her natural armor made clicking sounds when she was nervous. The head guard was huge with skin like stone. He checked his computer. His small eyes got very wide. "The records are correct. Humans can enter the council room without weapons. The High Council signed this order. All 12 races agreed to it." The guards looked at each other. They did not know what to do. For 3,000 years, every race had to show their weapons when entering the council room. This was the most important law. No one had ever been allowed to break it. Sunmi Park walked closer to Tae-ho. Even though humans had raised her, her alien instincts still made her careful around dangerous things. "Ambassador Kim, do you know why this is making everyone so worried?" Tae-ho nodded slowly. "Yes, they told me about your customs. Every race shows their natural weapons when they come here. It proves your people are strong enough to have a voice in the council. But I do not understand why humans got this special treatment. My government just told me to trust that it would be okay." The meeting room behind the guards was enormous. It could hold people from over 200 different races, though only about 50 races were members right now. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Old symbols covered the walls. From every major space civilization. In the middle of the room was a platform where representatives gave speeches and made decisions that affected trillions of beings across the galaxy. Around this platform sat areas designed for different types of aliens. Some needed special air to breathe. Others needed different gravity or temperature. The Thriaxian group was already sitting in their area. Their ambassador had taken the human name Hyunwoo Lee to show respect for human diplomacy. His crystal spikes could shoot deadly energy bolts. The spikes glowed softly as he watched the confusion at the entrance. "Let him through," Sunmi Park finally decided. "The High Council has spoken. We must follow their decision even if we do not understand it." The guards stepped back. They did not like it, but they had no choice. Tae-ho walked into the great room. Every conversation stopped. Hundreds of eyes and other sensors focused on him. The Mandorian group sat in the warrior section. Their bone claws were extended to show controlled aggression. Their leader, Jae-sung-oh, was actually part human from ancient mixing of the races, though few people knew this. He watched Tae-ho with special interest. His grandmother had told him strange stories about humans. Near the far wall, the Kolarian representatives whispered to each other in their musical language. Their leader had taken the human name Min Ho-yoon, after an important encounter with human forces many years ago. He seemed less surprised than the others by seeing an unarmed human. The Cyan Collective stayed quiet as always. They talked to each other only through mental powers, but even their carefully controlled thoughts seemed upset as they watched the human ambassador. Tae-ho sat down in the new human area. He could feel every alien in the room watching him. Some looked curious. Others looked suspicious. A few looked afraid, though he could not understand why anyone would fear an unarmed human. The speaker of the council was so old that few people remembered what race he came from originally. He called for quiet. The room slowly became silent. "Today we welcome the newest member of our council," the speaker announced. His words were translated into every language by advanced computers. "The human race has been given full diplomatic status and all rights." A low murmur ran through the room. Many races were still unhappy about letting such a young civilization into the council. Humans had only been in space for a few hundred years. Most council members had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. However, the speaker continued, questions have been raised about certain unusual accommodations made for this species. The High Council will address these concerns when the time is right. Tejo felt his stomach tighten with worry. His superiors had told him this would be routine diplomatic work. No one had mentioned that his very presence would cause such controversy. Hyunwoo Lee of the Three Axions raised one of his crystal arms. Speaker, with respect, the sacred laws of this council have never been changed. Every race must show their evolutionary strength through display of their natural weapons. How can we accept a race that appears to have none? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Tejo started to stand up, but Sunmi Park caught his eye and shook her head slightly. She knew human body language well enough to know he was about to make things worse. The High Council's decision is final, the speaker replied firmly. The reasons will become clear to all in time. The formal meeting began. Tejo tried to pay attention to the diplomatic business, but he could not stop thinking about the mystery he had walked into. Every race around him carried weapons that had helped them dominate their homeworlds and reach for the stars. What had humans done to earn such an unusual exception? And why did some of the older races look at him not with contempt for being weak, but with something that looked almost like fear? 127 years before Tejo Kim walked into the council room, Captain Boram Choi sat on her ship looking at her computer screens with growing worry. The exploration ship New Seoul was not built for fighting. It had only basic shields and 60 human crew members whose job was to explore new star systems and make peaceful contact with alien races. Captain, we are seeing weapon fire ahead, said her navigation officer. Multiple ships are fighting. Boram leaned forward in her command chair. Show me what we are looking at. The main screen filled with images of 12 huge warships surrounding one much smaller ship. The attacking ships were firing continuously at the smaller craft. The smaller ship's shields were failing. Boram could see it would not survive much longer. The attacking ships are Mandorian design, her tactical officer reported. The ship being attacked looks like a Calarian colony transport. Captain, there are probably thousands of civilians on that ship. Boram knew about both races from Earth's database of galactic civilizations. The Mandorians were fierce warriors whose ancestors had evolved from pack hunters. They had natural bone claws that could extend from their arms and legs. This made them deadly in close combat. Their military was considered one of the strongest in known space. The Quilarians were a peaceful race known for their art and philosophy. They had never developed strong military technology because they had never needed it on their home world. Their colony ships carried entire families looking for new worlds to build communities focused on learning and culture. Captain, the Quilarian ship is sending a distress signal, the communications officer announced. They are asking for help from anyone who can hear them. Boram stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. Through the view screen, she could see the Mandorian ships moving in perfect formation, like the pack hunters their ancestors had been. The leader's ship was larger than the others and covered in decorative spikes and weapon ports. Captain, we cannot fight 12 Mandorian warships, her tactical officer said quietly. Our ship was not built for war. I know, Boram replied. But we cannot watch thousands of innocent people die either. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to the Mandorian fleet commander. Channel open, Captain. Mandorian ships. This is Captain Boram Choi of the human exploration ship New Seoul. You are attacking a civilian transport. Stop your attack right now. The answer came quickly. The voice was deep and aggressive. Exactly what Boram expected from a Mandorian warrior. Human ship, I am Fleet Commander Jae-sung-oh. You will leave this area right now or be destroyed. This is not your business. What the Mandorian commander did not mention was that his grandmother had been human. Long ago, some humans and Mandorians had married each other, though this was kept secret in Mandorian society. Jae-sung had inherited some human traits, though he tried to hide them behind traditional Mandorian aggression. Commander. Oh, I cannot do that, Boram responded calmly. Those are civilians you are attacking. What do you want from them? They carry rare minerals from their home world. We will take these minerals. The Quilarians will be sold as workers. This is the Mandorian way. Boram felt anger building inside her, but she kept her voice steady. I offer you a different choice. Leave now, and we will not interfere with your departure. On his command ship, Jae-sung laughed. His officers, all purebred Mandorians with traditional bone claws, laughed with him. "Little human, you have one small ship against our 12 warships. Your race is new to space. You know nothing about real war." "Then let me show you what humans have learned," Boram said. She closed the communication channel and turned to her crew. "All stations, prepare for combat. Helm, take us directly toward their command ship." "Captain, that is suicide," her tactical officer protested. "No," Boram said, sitting back in her command chair. "That is exactly what they expect us to think." The new soul began moving toward the Mandorian fleet. As it got closer, Boram studied the enemy formation carefully. She had spent years studying military history and tactics, not because humans were naturally warlike, but because humans were naturally curious about everything, including how other races thought and fought. "They are moving in pack formation," she observed, "just like their ancestors hunted. The leader stays in the center while the others protect the sides and back. It is instinctive behavior for them." Her tactical officer began to understand. "You are going to use their instincts against them." "Exactly. Begin evasive maneuvers, pattern 7. Make it look like we are panicking." The new soul started moving erratically like a frightened animal trying to escape. The Mandorian ships responded exactly as Boram had predicted. Their formation tightened around their commander's ship, preparing to destroy the small human ship quickly. But Boram was not running. She was studying them, learning their patterns, understanding how they thought. Every movement the Mandorian ships made told her something about their tactics, their reflexes, their assumptions. "Now," she ordered. "Execute maneuver sequence Delta 7. What happened next would be studied in military schools for decades." The new soul suddenly accelerated directly toward the Mandorian command ship, but at the last second it dove beneath the enemy formation. The Mandorian ships, expecting the human ship to either flee or attack head-on, were positioned completely wrong to respond to this move. As the new soul passed under the fleet, it fired its few weapons not at the ship's heavily armored fronts, but at their engine systems and weapon arrays. Boram had calculated exactly where to hit each ship to disable it without destroying it. But the real genius of her plan was psychological. By attacking from below, she had triggered the Mandorians' pack-hunting instincts in reverse. Instead of attacking their prey, they suddenly felt like they were the ones being hunted from an unexpected direction. The Mandorian formation broke apart as each ship tried to turn to face this new threat. In their confusion, 2 of their own ships crashed into each other, and a third accidentally fired on one of its allies. Commander Jae-sung watched in shock as his perfectly disciplined fleet turned into chaos because of one small ship. For the first time in his military career, he felt something his ancestors had rarely experienced: the fear of being outsmarted by a cleverer predator. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. "Leave immediately." The Mandorian fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the damaged Kalarian transport behind. Boram immediately ordered her crew to help the civilian ship with repairs and medical aid. Later, as the Quilarian leader Min Ho-yoon thanked the human captain for saving his people, he asked the question that would echo through the galaxy for over a century. "Captain Choi, how did you defeat 12 warships with 1 exploration ship?" Boram looked out at the stars and thought carefully about her answer. "We did not defeat their ships, Min-ho. We defeated their expectations. Sometimes the best weapon is simply understanding how your opponent thinks." Da-yoon Song stood in front of all the council members. She was the council's chief military analyst. For 3 months she had been studying the human question. What she had found disturbed her scientific mind. Floating displays showed information all around her using advanced technology. "Honored representatives," she began, "I will now show you what we discovered about human military abilities and why they have no natural weapons." The huge room was quieter than usual. Every race had sent their military experts to hear this analysis. The question of why humans got special weapon permissions had been growing more urgent as more reports of human involvement in conflicts reached the council. Da-yoon activated her first display. It showed the family tree of all council races. Each branch was marked by the development of natural weapons or tool-making abilities focused on war. "Every race in this room followed predictable paths when they evolved," she explained. "When our ancestors faced threats on their homeworlds, they developed special abilities to survive and dominate." The display zoomed in on the Zephyrian branch. The Zephyrians evolved electromagnetic pulse organs in their nervous systems. They can disable electronic systems and stun other creatures with directed energy bursts. Several Zephyrian representatives nodded. Their metallic skin flickered with small electrical displays of pride. The Hegemites developed diamond-hard shells with built-in projectile launchers. The display showed cross-sections of Hegemite anatomy. It revealed the complex organic mechanisms that could fire bone spikes with deadly accuracy. The Hegemite group sat proudly in their reinforced seating area. Their natural armor gleamed under the room lights. The Netherians secrete paralyzing compounds through special glands in their skin. Dayun pointed toward the Netherian section. These representatives sat behind protective barriers to prevent accidental poisoning of other species. She continued through dozens of examples. The crystalline hierarchy had evolved living weapons that grew from their bodies. The Void Hunters had developed natural stealth abilities that made them nearly invisible. The Mandorians had their retractable bone claws and pack coordination instincts. In every case, Dayun said, evolution created races that were optimized for combat in some way. This is natural. On dangerous worlds, only the strongest and most capable warriors survive to build civilizations. The display changed to show human anatomy and development. But humans show none of these specializations. No natural weapons, no combat-specific organs, no instinctive knowledge of war tactics. Hyunwoo Lee of the Thriaxians raised his crystal arm. Then how do they survive? How did they reach space? That is exactly the question that led to disturbing discoveries, Da'un replied. Let me show you evidence of human military actions over the past century. The room darkened as new displays showed recorded battles. The first was the incident with Captain Bo-Ram Choi and the Mandorian fleet. Many council members had heard about it, but few had seen detailed records. One human exploration ship with minimal weapons defeated 12 Mandorian warships, Dayun announced. But this is not the only example. More displays appeared. Human peacekeeping forces had been involved in 17 different conflicts over the past century. In each case, they had been outnumbered, outgunned, and facing races with superior natural combat abilities. Here, human forces ended a 3-year war between the Scorpion clans in 6 days, Da'un said, showing tactical maps of the conflict. The Scorpion clans have natural armor and poisonous stingers. They had been fighting each other in perfect stalemate because their abilities were equally matched. The display showed how human negotiators and tactical advisors had analyzed both clans' fighting styles. They identified the underlying cultural reasons for the conflict and designed a solution that satisfied both sides while ending the bloodshed. In this example, human medical teams ended the plague wars of the Outer Rim. New images showed human doctors working with 12 different races at the same time. Each race had developed biological weapons specifically designed to target their enemy's unique biology. The conflicts were impossible to resolve because each race's natural defenses were useless against weapons designed specifically for them. The human medical teams had studied all 12 races' biologies. They understood how each biological weapon worked and developed universal treatments that saved millions of lives while making further biological warfare pointless. Sunmi Park, who had been raised by humans but remained Velkari, felt a chill running through her natural armor plates. She was beginning to understand something that frightened her. But the most disturbing evidence comes from direct military confrontations. Da'un continued. Here we see human forces defending a mining colony against Razorwing raiders. The Razorwings were considered among the most dangerous races in known space. They had evolved from flying predators with natural weapons like metal-hard talons and the ability to dive at incredible speeds. Their raids were usually unstoppable. The display showed a small group of human soldiers facing a Razorwing attack force 3 times their size. But instead of trying to match the aliens' natural advantages, the humans had studied Razorwing behavior and found their weaknesses. The humans used the Razorwing's own instincts against them, Da'un explained. Razorwings attack in specific patterns based on their hunting heritage. The humans predicted these patterns and set traps that turned the aliens' greatest strengths into vulnerabilities. More examples followed. Humans had defeated shape-shifting infiltrators by understanding their psychology, better than the shapeshifters understood themselves. They had stopped a hive mind species by analyzing the mathematical patterns of their communications and disrupting their coordination. In every case, humans had won not through superior weapons or natural abilities, but by understanding their opponents completely and using that understanding to find solutions. The pattern is clear, Dayun said, her voice growing quieter. Humans do not defeat their enemies through force. They defeat them through comprehension. The room was completely silent now. Every representative was beginning to understand what they were hearing. But this raises the most disturbing question of all, Dayun continued. If humans can understand other races well enough to predict and counter their actions in war, what does that mean for diplomacy? She activated a final display showing brain scans from various races. We asked human diplomats to wear monitoring equipment during negotiations with different alien races. The results show that human brains actively mirror the neural patterns of whoever they are speaking with. The scans showed human neural activity changing in real time to match the thought patterns of Zephyrians, then Hegemites, then Netherians, and others. It was as if the human brain was constantly adapting to understand exactly how other races thought. Humans do not just negotiate with us, Dayun said, her scientific objectivity beginning to crack. They understand us better than we understand ourselves. When a human talks to a Mandorian, part of their brain begins thinking like a Mandorian. When they talk to a Quilarian, they adapt to think like a Quilarian. The implications hit the room like a physical blow. Every race present had representatives who had negotiated with humans over the past several years. Treaties, trade agreements, territorial disputes, all had been resolved with humans involved, often in ways that seemed surprisingly fair to all parties. The exemption allowing humans to enter council chambers without weapons, Dayun concluded, may not be a privilege. It may be a recognition of what humans actually are. They do not need to carry weapons because they have evolved into something more dangerous than any weapon. She paused, looking around the room at hundreds of different races, all now seeing humanity in a completely different light. They have evolved the ability to become us. Kyung-Soo Jang stood up from the Scion Collective's area. His tall, pale figure immediately got attention from everyone in the council room. The Scions were among the most respected and feared races in the galaxy because of their advanced mental abilities. When they chose to speak out loud instead of using telepathy, everyone listened carefully. The military analyst has shown us troubling data, Kyung-Soo said in his clear, precise voice. The Scion Collective has done our own investigation into human mental patterns. Our findings explain not only the military victories but the deeper nature of human consciousness itself. He gestured, and complex brain mapping displays appeared in the air above the room. Unlike the simple brain scans Dayun Song had shown, these revealed the intricate workings of consciousness itself. Every race in this room evolved specialized mental traits alongside their physical weapons, Kyung-Soo explained. Mandorians developed pack coordination instincts. Zephyrians evolved electromagnetic sensitivity. Hegemites gained geometric calculation abilities for precision projectile targeting. The displays showed different alien brain structures. Each one was optimized for specific types of thinking that supported their race's evolutionary advantages. But observe human neural architecture, Kyung-Soo continued. The human brain scan that appeared was unlike anything the Council had seen before. Instead of specialized regions dedicated to specific abilities, the human brain showed constant, dynamic activity flowing between all areas at the same time. Humans did not evolve specialized thinking, Kyung-Soo announced. They evolved adaptive thinking. Their brains can restructure themselves in real time to match the mental patterns of any race they encounter. A murmur of unease rippled through the room. Several races' representatives shifted nervously in their seats. Natural weapons extended slightly in unconscious defensive responses. We tested this ability extensively, Kyung-Soo said. We had human subjects interact with members of 12 different races while monitoring their brain activity. The results were unprecedented. New displays showed time-lapse recordings of human brain activity during conversations with various aliens. The patterns were startling. When talking to a Mandorian, regions of the human brain associated with pack hierarchy and territorial thinking became highly active. When speaking with a Quilarian, areas linked to artistic and philosophical reasoning lit up intensely. The humans were not conscious of this process, Kyung-Soo noted. They reported simply trying to understand and communicate effectively. But their brains were automatically adapting to mirror the cognitive patterns of their conversation partners. Soon Mi Park felt her armor plates trembling. As a Velkari raised by humans, She had always felt that her human adoptive parents understood her better than her own race did. Now she was beginning to understand why. We conducted deeper tests, Kyung-soo continued. We presented human subjects with strategic problems designed by different races. Military puzzles created by Mandorian war masters, technological challenges designed by Hegemite engineers, social dilemmas crafted by Kalarian philosophers. The results appeared on new displays. In every case, humans had not only solved the problems, but had solved them using methods that perfectly matched the thinking patterns of the race that created them. A human solving a Mandorian war puzzle thought like a Mandorian pack leader, Kyung-soo explained. The same human solving a Hegemite engineering challenge thought like a Hegemite architect. It was as if they became mentally Mandorian or Hegemite temporarily. Hyun-woo Lee of the Three Axions stood up. His crystal spines glowed with agitation. You are saying humans can copy our thought processes? That they can predict our actions by thinking like us? Not copy, Kyung-soo corrected. They genuinely think like you while maintaining their human adaptability. It is not copying, it is true mental transformation. The room erupted in concerned discussions. Representatives from dozens of races talked rapidly among themselves. Many switched to private languages or encrypted communication methods. The implications extend far beyond military applications, Kyung-soo said, raising his voice to restore order. Consider every diplomatic negotiation, every trade agreement, every conflict resolution involving humans over the past century. He gestured toward Tae-ho Kim, who had been listening with growing amazement and concern. Ambassador Kim, when you negotiate with Mandorian representatives, what do you focus on? Tae-ho stood slowly, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes upon him. I try to understand their cultural values, their concepts of honor and strength, their pack dynamics. It helps me find solutions that respect their traditions while achieving peaceful outcomes. And with Quilarian representatives, I consider their artistic sensibilities, their philosophical frameworks, their emphasis on harmony and beauty. I look for elegant solutions that appeal to their aesthetic sense. Kyung-soo nodded. You believe you are simply being culturally sensitive. But our scans show that your brain actually restructures itself during these interactions. You are not just considering Mandorian values, you temporarily become capable of thinking like a Mandorian while retaining your human flexibility. The full weight of this revelation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Every race present had negotiated with humans. Many had come away from those negotiations feeling like the humans had understood their positions almost better than they understood themselves. This explains the military victories, Daeun Song said, her analytical mind putting the pieces together. Humans defeat other races not through superior weapons or tactics, but by understanding those races completely enough to predict their actions and exploit their psychological patterns. Correct, Kyung-soo confirmed, but it also explains something else that should concern this council greatly. He activated new displays showing voting patterns and diplomatic outcomes from the past several decades. In conflicts where humans served as mediators, the resolution rate is 97%. In trade disputes where humans participated, both sides reported satisfaction rates above 90%. In territorial negotiations involving humans, long-term stability rates exceed any historical precedents. The statistics were undeniable. Wherever humans became involved in galactic diplomacy, outcomes improved dramatically for all parties involved. On the surface, this seems beneficial, Kyung-soo said, but consider the deeper implications. Humans can understand any race well enough to predict their behavior, exploit their weaknesses, or manipulate their decision-making processes. The room fell completely silent. Every representative was now looking at Tae-ho Kim with a mixture of respect, fear, and uncertainty. The question this council must answer, Kyung-soo concluded, is not whether humans deserve the weapon exemption. The question is whether any race with this level of mental adaptability can be trusted with full diplomatic privileges. He paused, letting his words sink in, before delivering the final revelation that would change galactic politics forever. Because if humans can think like any of us well enough to predict and counter our actions, then in the realm of diplomacy and negotiation, where the fate of civilizations is decided, they are potentially more dangerous than any race carrying plasma, cannons, or energy blades. Tae-ho Kim remained standing, He realized that he and his entire race had just been revealed to be something they had never understood themselves to be. Not just another spacefaring civilization, but a race that had evolved the most powerful weapon possible in a galaxy full of thinking beings. The ability to understand anyone completely enough to influence their decisions. The council room had never been quieter. Hundreds of different races contemplated what it meant to have among them a people who could become them, understand them, and potentially outthink them, all while remaining fundamentally human. The tension in the council room had reached a breaking point. Representatives from dozens of races were demanding answers, explanations, and some were even calling for humans to be kicked out of the council entirely. Yeonsu Kang, Earth's senior diplomatic representative, finally stood and raised her hand for silence. "Honored Council," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room. "I understand your concerns. The revelations about human mental adaptability are disturbing to you, as they are to us. We did not fully understand our own capabilities until today." She looked around the room, making eye contact with representatives from multiple races. "But perhaps a demonstration would help clarify the true nature of human abilities and why the weapon exemption exists." The Speaker of the Council, ancient and wise, leaned forward with interest. "What kind of demonstration do you propose, Ambassador Kang?" "The Warlord Council has 12 of the finest military minds from 12 different races," Yeonsu said. "I propose a strategic simulation. All 12 against one human commander. Let the results speak for themselves." Shocked murmurs filled the room. The Warlord Council consisted of the greatest tactical minds from each race's military traditions. They had never been defeated in war games either individually or as a group. War Master Drakhun of the Mandorians stood up. His bone claws extended aggressively. "You suggest that one human can defeat 12 veteran commanders at the same time?" "I suggest we find out," Yeonsu replied calmly. Fleet Admiral Gi-hun Nam entered the room through a side entrance. He wore the simple gray uniform of the human space navy. He was a middle-aged man with calm eyes and an unremarkable appearance. Nothing about him suggested the legendary tactical genius that military scholars across the galaxy had been studying for the past decade. "Admiral Nam has agreed to participate in this demonstration," Yeonsu announced. "He will face strategic scenarios designed by each of your military traditions at the same time." The room's center was cleared and a massive holographic display system activated. 12 separate tactical environments appeared. Each one represented the kind of warfare that different races had mastered over thousands of years of evolution and conflict. The Mandorian scenario showed pack-based territorial combat with multiple clan groups competing for resources. The Zephyrian challenge involved electronic warfare and energy-based weapon systems. The Hegemite simulation focused on precision engineering and geometric battlefield control. Each scenario has been designed to favor the thinking patterns and natural advantages of the race that created it, explained the Council's war game administrator. Admiral Nam will need to achieve victory conditions in all 12 scenarios at the same time while the other commanders work to stop. Admiral Gi-hun Nam walked to the central control station and placed his hands on the interface. Around him, the 12 members of the Warlord Council took positions at their own tactical stations. Each one was confident in their race's evolutionary advantages. "Begin simulation," the administrator announced. What happened over the next 2 hours would be analyzed by military academies for generations. Admiral Nam did not try to fight 12 different battles with human tactics. Instead, he became 12 different commanders, thinking like each race while maintaining overall strategic coherence. Against the Mandorians, he thought in terms of pack dynamics and territorial control, but used their own instincts to create traps and ambushes. Against the Zephyrians, he adapted to electromagnetic warfare principles while finding ways to use their energy-based thinking against them. The observers watched in growing amazement as the human commander's brain patterns, displayed on monitoring equipment, shifted constantly between different alien thought structures. When focused on the Mandorian scenario, his neural activity matched pack hunting patterns. When addressing the Quilarian philosophical warfare challenge, his thinking became artistic and harmonious. "He is not just adapting his tactics," whispered Kyung-Soo Jang of the Scion Collective. "He is literally thinking like each race while solving their scenarios." But the most disturbing aspect was not that Admiral Nam was winning each individual challenge. It was that he was predicting his opponent's moves with impossible accuracy. War Master Drakhan of the Mandorians found that every tactical decision he made was anticipated and countered before he could execute it. The human somehow understood Mandorian pack psychology well enough to predict exactly how a Mandorian commander would respond to different battlefield conditions. The same pattern repeated across all 12 scenarios. Each alien commander discovered that their opponent understood their race's thinking patterns better than they understood themselves. "This is impossible," declared Crystal Mind Vextar of the Hegemites. "He cannot know our geometric calculation methods. They are based on mathematical principles that evolved, specifically in Hegemite minds." But Admiral Nam was not only using Hegemite mathematical thinking, he was using it more efficiently than the Hegemites themselves. He had identified optimization patterns in their calculations that they had never noticed. As the simulation continued, something even more remarkable became apparent. Admiral Nam was not just defeating each opponent individually. He was orchestrating interactions between the different scenarios that created cascading effects across all 12 battlefields at the same time. "Look at what he is doing," Dayun Song said, pointing to the tactical displays. "He is using the Mandorians' pack coordination to create resonance effects in the Zephyrian energy warfare scenario. The electromagnetic patterns from that scenario are influencing the crystalline formations. In the Hegemite challenge, the human commander was thinking like 12 different races at once while weaving their distinct advantages together into a unified strategy that none of them had imagined possible one by one. The alien commanders found their scenarios collapsing as Admiral Nam achieved victory conditions through methods that perfectly matched their own races, thinking but exceeded their capabilities. "Simulation complete," the administrator announced. "After exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes, Admiral Nam has achieved victory conditions in all 12 scenarios." The room was completely silent. The greatest military minds from 12 different races had been defeated, not by superior human technology or natural advantages, but by a single human who had understood each of them better than they understood themselves. War Master Drakhan of the Mandorians stared at his tactical display in shock. "How did you predict every move I would make?" Admiral Nam looked at him with sympathy. "I did not predict your moves, War Master. I understood why you would make them. When I focused on your scenario, I thought like a Mandorian pack leader. Your decisions became logical and obvious to me, because they were exactly the decisions I would have made if I truly were Mandorian." "But you also thought like 11 other races at the same time," pointed out Crystal Mind Vextar. "Yes," Admiral Nam admitted. "That is the difference between us. You evolved to think like your own race perfectly. We evolved to think like any race adaptively." The implications hit the room like a physical blow. Every representative realized that they had just witnessed why humans were granted the weapon exemption. In the council chambers, where diplomacy and negotiation determined the fate of civilizations, humans possessed the ultimate advantage. They could understand every other race, completely while remaining unpredictable themselves. This demonstration answers your questions about our military capabilities, Yunsu Kang said to the assembled council, "but it also reveals why we do not carry weapons into these chambers." She gestured toward Admiral Nam, who had just demonstrated tactical capabilities that exceeded the greatest military minds in galactic history. "We do not need weapons because we can understand you well enough to defeat you without them. But more importantly, we can understand you well enough to find solutions that benefit everyone." The room remained silent as hundreds of different races contemplated the full implications of what they had witnessed. Humans had not evolved to become better warriors. They had evolved to become perfect understanders, capable of thinking like any race while maintaining their own adaptability. In a galaxy where diplomacy was the highest form of warfare, they had just discovered that humans were potentially the most dangerous race of all.